Welcome to Simulator Review, helping you find quality flight simulation with the world's most comprehensive listings and reviews of simulators. And we are back. A warm welcome to our podcast for the flight simulation community. My name is Alexis, and in today's episode, I'm joined by my colleagues from simulatorreview.com, Elliott.
Hello.
And Andrew.
Good evening.
After our 2-month break, we are pleased to be back with the podcast. As venues have started to open up again, we have been starting to do visits so we can bring you more of our Blue Pin featured reviews. If you're a regular listener of our podcast, a very warm welcome back. If you are new to our podcast, then we're pleased you found us and you're in the right place for the top podcast on simulator venues and getting the most from your simulator experiences. We hope you do stick around, and we recommend episodes 1 and 2 for a great introduction to us and our website, simulatorreview.com. This episode, we will be looking at another of our Blue Pin featured reviews for a simulator which we have visited. We have done quite a few episodes in the past dedicated to our featured review venues, so do have a listen to those. Typically, every other podcast episode is dedicated to discussing one of our featured reviews. In this episode, we'll be looking at SEMET Aviation, based at Fairoaks Airport in the southeast of the UK. As well as chatting about the review itself, which you can read on our site, we want to give you some background of our review and discussion of what we thought the venue was like. Before we get on to SEMET Aviation, it's time for our regular catch-up of simulator news, where we cover news both at simulatorreview.com and in the wider simulator community. And for this, we go over to Elliott. So, Elliott, what have you got for us for simulator news for this episode?
Thanks, Alexis. So, I just thought we'd have a look at the industry starting to open back up. So we've obviously suffered a few months of restrictions since the beginning of the year, but hopefully we're reaching the end of those. Unfortunately, we've had some venues close around the world, and we've been notified of that, and we've also had some new venues opening up. So it's been a lot of change in the last few months. We are starting to see, as they open up, some good offers out there. I noticed you found a couple, Alexis, and promoted those for us.
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's some really good deals on at the moment as places are opening up and trying to attract customers. And one of the advantages is that they'll often be selling you vouchers. So this is which you can often use for up to now 2 or 3 years after you've bought them. So this is a great time to be finding a really good simulator, seeing if they've got a sale, stocking up on a few hours worth of vouchers to be used maybe in one session later this year or spread out over the next year or two. So I certainly would be doing that if I was looking to start stockpiling a few hours at a simulator.
And certainly if you're a keen simulation enthusiast, or you particularly like your local venue, then that's a really good way to support them and help them get through these times. So quite obviously when you visit these venues, it's going to be a little bit different to how it was before. So a lot of the venues are reducing the numbers. So whereas before you'd probably be able to take most of your family in with you to a lot of the places, they're saying it's a solo visit for those old enough, or for those under sort of adult age. Just bring in one guardian or parent with you. And most of the places are also sort of insisting on masks inside as well. So expect that as well. It does make communication a little difficult, but a lot of the venues have intercom and headsets, so you are able to talk to each other quite clearly through a mask on that setup. So that's something to look for as and when you're booking, and certainly worth finding out before you attend.
So that's certainly good news for venues opening up again. And anything else, Elliott? I think especially on your favourite mobile-based flight simulator?
Yeah, we all know I'm a bit of a fan for Infinite Flight. We've had a quite major update, haven't we? It's been a new aircraft release, a bit of a tweak, and there's also been buildings added. So quite a few of the major airports around the world have got some 3D scenery added to them, and that really does make a big difference. You do notice a lot of the traffic in the simulator now congregates around these airports, so it's a very busy aviation environment to fly in and out of on your iPad.
Yes, previously there were no buildings at all, but since this latest update, they've added, I think, about 30 airports with 3D buildings, and I've done a few flights to one or two of them, and they really do look quite impressive, and they really add to that immersion feeling you get. And as we've said before, considering this is a mobile-based flight simulator, clearly it's not going to be up to the same standards as a PC-based one, but I think it really does provide a great experience.
I mean, we don't have to go too far back on PC flight simulators to find worse scenery than we're getting now on an iPad. And I've not even got the latest iPad, and it's running it really quite well. So it's a phenomenal simulator, really good value, and very convenient and great to have at home.
Absolutely. Right, that's a good catch-up from when we last did a podcast 2 months ago. So we'll look forward to having some news in the next podcast, Elliott. In this episode, the main topic of discussion is one of our Bluepin featured reviews, and we've chosen SEMET Aviation based at Fairoaks Airport in the southeast of the UK. As you may have heard in our previous podcasts, these are featured reviews and our top category, where we've been to the venue and done a thorough in-person review to really bring you all the detail about what the venue offers and what the simulator is really like. Elliott and I went to this simulator venue recently, and that means it's once again time for someone else to take up the podcast's left-hand seat and lead the discussion. By overwhelming popular demand while we've been away, it's time for Andrew to take up the reins again. It's been a few weeks since Andrew last took control, so Andrew, have you had to do a quick refresher course beforehand?
Oh no, I'm just going to wing it, just do my best. But Alexis, I'm really flattered that the demand's been overwhelming. I mean, I know there's demand there, and thanks, Mum, but overwhelming, that's really nice. Really nice of you to.
There have been literally many letters coming in.
Many letters. Actually writing in. Oh, that's really nice. That's really nice.
This is very old-fashioned, though, isn't it? I'm betraying. Yeah. So we had a few singing telegrams as well that came in that were nice. Demanding you come back.
Yeah, the cakes were a bit over the top, but other than that, I'm sure it was all well received.
Right. So over to you, Andrew.
Yeah, a bit more serious note, I guess. SEMET Aviation with their setup there. I guess the first question we sort of ask is, how do we come across these guys? How do they get added to the database? And because you normally do the setups, Alexis, so perhaps you'd like to kick off on that.
Yeah, so we've known one of the owners of this venue for a while now, and if you've been listening to the podcast for a while, you know we had James on a couple of months ago to talk about him setting up a simulator 737 that he built at home and set up at Fairoaks Airport, and that's actually the sister company of this other one he's also set up, which is SEMET Aviation. We obviously wanted to go and visit both of them. Obviously, the last few months it's not been possible, but now it has been. We went and visited both SEMET Aviation simulator and the 737. So we'll talk about the 737 in another podcast, but we were both interested to see that, and I think Elliott had been before as well and had a quick look as well, and it seemed quite an interesting venue. And I think unusually SEMET is not a jet simulator, so most of them in our directory are 737s, A320s, maybe the odd 777. This is different. This is really more about general aviation and single and twin propeller aircraft. So really something different and something interesting that we wanted to see.
And to add to that, it's a very, very interesting proposition of a general aviation simulator housed at a perfect general aviation location on a general aviation airport. I mean, it's got a real recipe to have everything we like in a simulator, and it was very interesting to go and have a look. We were quite excited about this visit.
Now, we all know Fairoaks is world famous in the UK, but for our listeners, other locations, whereabouts is Fairoaks in England?
Fairoaks is located to the southwest of London. If you imagine Heathrow and draw a line straight down, you'll come across Fairoaks at some point. So it's a little GA airfield, big apron area, hard standing, got a flying school, helicopter school, but it's very big with private and VIP general aviation, so King Airs, small jets every now and again, Pilatus PC-12s, very lovely, expensive helicopters, all nipping in and out, and a very busy sort of private light aircraft scene there as well, and the world-famous hangar cafe.
Well, of course, your article touches on this at simulatorreview.com, particularly the coffee I hear is rather good.
I know you've been yourself, Andrew, and sampled this coffee.
So it's been a few years ago now. So we probably should talk about the simulator itself. Now, Elliott, I understand you did the flying bit, including the retractable undercarriage, which you may well chat about. So the simulator, what would our listeners like to know about that? How did you find it? Graphics, sound, that type of thing?
Yeah, so the simulator is a fixed-base simulator, and it can model a single-engine, very basic light aircraft. It can also do an advanced sort of complex single aircraft, they call it, and that's with a variable pitch propeller. For those of you on flight sim, that's the blue lever you normally see on the throttle quadrant, and a retractable undercarriage. So that makes it, or puts it in the advanced category or complex category. And there's also then a multi-engine Beech Baron, I believe that's based on. So again, that'll be complex in terms of retractable undercarriage and variable pitch propellers, but also twin engine, and it's a full instrument rated simulator as well. So used for training. So the kit that you would have in it is what you would need to fly in airways around the world. And you're sat in a single seat simulator. It's built around you, projected 180 degree wraparound vision with some phenomenal scenery, especially for Fairoaks and Innsbruck. And the kit we'll touch on a little bit later, but is kitted out really nicely with all the latest tools that a pilot flying GA would expect to use these days.
I remember you saying, we were talking about it earlier, that actually when you were there it was very busy, and particularly with a lot of instructors with their students coming through for IR practice.
That's right. We were very lucky that James, Anna and Nick afforded us, or they booked us a slot in the simulator just to make sure that we could come in and experience it. But it was a busy venue, and a lot of their custom is actually training, and such as the way the sim's set up, whereas an instructor would bring their student in and use the aircraft for instrument flying, and it's actually good enough to do a lot of visual flying. The scenery and projection is really that good. So this is a fantastic tool. If you can imagine the traditional British weather, and this is an ideal way to still have a lesson and do some learning, and offer a considerable saving on what it would cost in the actual aircraft.
Yeah, one of the unique features I spotted, or we both spotted and were taken by surprise, was the addition of smoke to simulate issues in the cockpit.
I was on downwind leg at Innsbruck, and I did get a whiff of smoke coming, and I glanced round and the whole cockpit filled with smoke. So that's very interesting. We have seen that elsewhere. SEMET Aviation in Glasgow with our friends up there have got a smoke machine operating, but yeah, it's a very nice addition. It does add to a touch of realism, and I imagine in some certain scenarios it would add a little bit of pressure and difficulty managing a scenario or a setup.
I think one of the obvious things when you go in, compared to a lot of the simulators we've been to, is that it's a single seat, if you like, for the pilot, with an instructor seat off to the side. But clearly that's entirely within keeping with these kind of aircraft anyway. So I don't think it in any way detracts from it. Actually, I think it's entirely realistic to what you would normally have anyway. Is that right, Elliott?
Yeah, it's exactly. You would expect to fly these aircraft as a single pilot. It'd be really rare to crew these up with two pilots. I mean, it'd be great fun to do so and provide some great flying. But no, we felt that was entirely appropriate. And as such, some of the kit that they've put into the simulator, so they've got dual Garmin GPS, which is almost standard kit now for any instrument aircraft. That allows you to fly sort of RNAV procedures and waypoints a lot more easily than tracking VORs and NDBs on your standard instrument setup. And also, this simulator's got functionality or connectivity with SkyDemon and ForeFlight, which is fantastic. So it can overlay the aircraft position on a chart on a tablet such as an iPad, and on top of that, it's got a VATSIM and internet hookup. So using ForeFlight and SkyDemon, it can actually display the other traffic onto the tablet and provide a sort of TCAS or traffic scenario, which is very, very realistic. And on this iPad as well, we've got all the instrument charts. So this is a fully kitted simulator for the advanced training environment.
Well, the connectivity, it sounds really good how they've got that set up. But in terms of actual physical hardware, Elliott's maybe a couple of good points, maybe a couple of things they're going to work on in terms of the hardware side of stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. So the visual aspect and the sound of the simulator, very accurate, very realistic. Maybe a few jerks as the computer's processing some quite complex scenery, but we'll let that one go. The really good things are the kit and the layout. So we've talked about the connectivity and the SkyDemon, but also the twin GPS, Garmin GPS, absolutely fantastic. A little thing that we noticed was even the magnetic compass stuck to the top of the glare shield actually moves accurately when you turn. So that's a really nice little touch and nice feature. Perhaps more negative, so some of the hardware, such as the throttle quadrant and the yoke and the pedals, are off-the-shelf home flight simulation sort of kit, which we'll hand it to them. It's entirely appropriate for this setup, but it's very hard to have the same feel for a Beech Baron compared to a PA-28. So they're just trying to average it out and be in the middle there. So it's probably okay for a PA-28, probably not quite how a twin would feel, but replicating that would be almost impossible to do. So they've got a wide base to cover, and what they've done here by going for some generic sort of equipment is absolutely the right thing to do. I did have a little trouble controlling it on the runway with the pedals. They were very, very sensitive with not a lot of crosswind, so that's just something to be aware of. But once airborne, absolutely fantastic.
So for someone just wanting a little bit of GA experience and practice, sounds like that'll be fine. Whereas a student practicing, getting some lessons in an IR environment, sounds like that'll work nicely as well.
Yep, I think it covers all the bases. So I think this simulator is predominantly going to be used for training, perhaps less for visual training, more for instrument training. And I do believe our instructor did say that most of the simulator's use is IMC and instrument rating training at the moment.
Okay, nice. So moving on to the venue in more general terms, we've already spoken about its location, physically where it is, and the nice cafe, nice coffee. But Alexis, more general from the business side of things, the website, booking process, value for money, what's been your impression? What have you found in your research with them?
It's a nice venue, actually, as Alex mentioned, at Fairoaks Airport. There's a large-ish briefing room, meeting room, should I say, next to the simulator. The simulator's kind of set back in another room, separate, so there's plenty of space to brief beforehand, and that's something that they told us they do, which is that when you buy your time, if you're buying an hour or something like that, you get, you can have potentially up to half an hour briefing time beforehand, and that helps with the value for money as well. That's something we like to see, and what they try and concentrate on, rather than potentially having a higher price and having occasional sales, is they try and offer a good value price for the simulator all the time. And certainly looking at the prices they're offering per hour, they all seem pretty reasonable, actually. The welcome we got was very good when we went there. It was clearly a friendly business. They obviously were happy to sit down and spend some time with us and explain what was going on. I think knowing the people that are there and having some interaction with the instructors as well while we're there, I certainly wouldn't have any issues in terms of, I think, both in terms of the quality of the instruction they're giving and also the way they are, friendliness. The way they can do it is that you book through the website. You can specify a time that you'd like and a date, and they will try and crew that for you. But if not, they'll get in touch and try and arrange something that's works for you as well. You can hire the sim as a sim only, as a dry sim, so you can come and use that with somebody else, as an instructor who's able to use that. Or they have also courses that you can do in terms of just looking what they offer. They've got courses in single pilot resource management for a fixed price for that, or instrument rating refresher courses. So some really interesting courses, I think, if you want to spend some time and learn something about, flying an aircraft there.
Lovely, thanks. Al, was anything you'd like to add to Alexis' comments there?
Yeah, I'd just like to touch on what he was saying about the friendliness. They've set this up because Fairoaks is a very friendly airfield. My wife did her PPL at this airfield, so they're trying to foster a good atmosphere and an aviation atmosphere. They want someone to pop in, come and have a coffee, come and have a look at the sim, have a chat. As I wrote in the review, there's usually an airline pilot there. All of their instructors are airline pilots, current airline pilots, and you know how we all like to talk about aeroplanes. So you pop in, have a coffee, have a chat, and they're just trying to foster a community and a sense of, an aviation atmosphere there. So it's very great, the friendliness at this venue, which isn't detracting. It's a very well and quite a slick run business at the moment as well. So that's good to see. It doesn't detract with the friendliness. Sometimes they don't work too well together. What we do need to mention, we always look at these venues, is access for everybody. And it's something we like to see. Some venues have clearly spent a lot of money making sure everybody can access the simulator. And I do think it would be a little bit difficult at this venue. It's up a series of steps and through a narrow-ish doorway to access the building. And also, if to use the facilities, it's also through a doorway and down some steps. I mean, once up and into the building, there's only a very short step up to the aircraft, or simulator, I should say, and also the doorways into the briefing rooms and the sims are plenty wide enough, but there is limited access in and out, and I'm not sure that a ramp could be fitted in this location. So when that was raised with them, they were well aware of the limitations, and they were quite keen. If it is a problem for somebody to contact, come and have a look, they'll do everything they can and try their best to field it. So well aware, they were, adamant that they could do something about it and help out, but it's certainly a consideration that it requires a little bit of forethought if you need help with accessibility.
Yeah, they certainly do sound like a business, particularly a young business. They're very keen to, do their best for their customer. You can see with the, extra half-hour briefing, they're not booking sims directly on top of each other, so to speak. So that, you can see they're actually going the extra mile. So that's really good to see, and particularly for a new business, it'll hopefully establish a good name for them in the industry.
Yeah, and to just again back to the disabilities, they've got a partnership, or they're chatting to Airability at Blackbush, which is a charity for helping disabled people fly, and it's got some very famous patrons like Buzz Aldrin, and the director of flight ops at British Airways is also heavily involved with a lot of airline pilots there, and they're working with them and talking to them as well. So it's definitely on their radar and definitely something they're there to improve. But as you say, it is a brand new business.
Nice. Well, chaps, it sort of brings us to the end of the review for SEMET Aviation. So our overall thoughts, Alexis, perhaps start with you. Your overall thoughts about the simulator, value for money, venue, or anything else that we should have covered off with you.
I really like this simulator, and I think it's a unique simulator that we haven't seen before. Obviously, they offer experiences if you want to do that, but a lot of it is all the courses we've talked about, the training they can do, the quality and the caliber of the instructors that they've got. And for the amount of money you're paying, potentially, and we talked about prices a bit earlier, to have a real-world airline pilot come and pass on their knowledge and train you for an hour, for you to learn from that for £110, I think is really good value. So personally, I would have no problems recommending this simulator for somebody who really wants to, I suppose, start out and learn the basics of flying. I think this is a great simulator. If you want to get some time and you want to look towards doing a PPL at some point, obviously this simulator won't count to your hours, but I think it's a great way to get some experience on an aircraft, to learn some stuff which will really help you later on, because certainly what you're going to be taught here, what you're going to learn on the simulator, the experience you're going to get is of a caliber that you can translate into real world flying of a light aircraft as well.
I would absolutely second that. This is, in my opinion, a fantastic training tool. And if you did want to come for an experience on this type of aircraft, you're going to learn a lot of good background theory and knowledge that you'll be able to take to any other simulator. And there's a reason why when airline pilots train, for example, we all start in the light aircraft before moving on to the bigger one. So I would caution that if you're wanting an airline experience, I probably wouldn't say this is the simulator. They do sell experiences for this sim, but their sister company just across the airfield has got a 737 experience simulator. So if you wanted to actually fly an airliner and have an airline experience, then perhaps this isn't the simulator for that one, but we'll cover their sister company, which offer a good 737 simulator to use in another episode.
Right, thank you, gentlemen. I think that brings us to the end of our review of our SEMET Aviation in Fairoaks in the UK. Thank you very much for your review. As I mentioned earlier, that full review, photographs, text will be on simulatorreview.com very shortly. But it's been lovely in the left seat with the nice sheepskin covering, but I see Alexis is coming back. He's going to want his seat back. So I'll hand over, but thank you, chaps. You have control.
Thank you, I have control, and thank you for keeping the seat warm and leading the discussion on our return podcast today, Andrew. So, yeah, great simulator to start with. A great review for our first one as we are coming back. As we mentioned, there's a related sister company, Airline Experience, which has a 737 simulator at Fairoaks. So we also visited that, and we'll be doing a podcast about that in a few weeks' time. So do keep an eye out for that in the future. So there you go, a chat about SEMET Aviation in the UK and their fixed-base propeller simulator. Do have a look at the review on our site as well. There are some photos that we took when Elliott and I visited, and also some great videos of the venue as well, so you can really see what it's like. If you've been to SEMET Aviation, let us know what you think. You can add your comments to the review on our site, simulatorreview.com. We'd also love to hear what you thought and whether you enjoyed your experience. And do mention to them that you heard about their simulator from our site and our podcast. Also, if there are other simulator venues you are interested in us reviewing, do let us know. In our next episode, we'll have a look at another of the subjects covered by our articles on our site, and we'll be going into a bit more in the background behind the article. If you want to know more, then join us for the next episode in 2 weeks' time. In the meantime, subscribe to our podcast on the podcast service of your choice. We're available on Apple, Google, Spotify, and quite a few others. So whichever one you are used to, you should be able to find us. And if you like what you hear, please leave us a star rating and review. Any 5-star reviews will be read out on the podcast, and we really appreciate your feedback and support. So until next episode, it's goodbye from me, and it's goodbye from Andrew.
Bye.
And it's goodbye from Elliott.
Cheerio.
Thank you for listening to the Simulator Review podcast. We would love your feedback, so please do comment and rate us. Please follow, share, like and subscribe on all our social media channels, where you can see regular updates on new simulator listings and reviews, as well as our latest articles. Until next time, happy simming.